All right, looks like we're up. So I would like to call this first meeting of the new year on, start that over. I will call this meeting to order of the January 3rd, 2023 Traffic and Transportation Committee to order. And let me see if Councilmember Parker, who I don't see on here. Okay, I don't see her on here, but she was listed for the invocation. But if you guys will join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And I would like to just take this opportunity to offer prayers to the family of Damar Hamlin. If you watched Monday Night Football last night, there was a just terrible event at the Monday Night Football game where he had to be taken to the hospital. So obviously my wife's a diehard Buffalo Bills fan, so all our thoughts and prayers are with their family as well. So that being said, I want to move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is the pedestrian safety on the Upper Peninsula, and ask Councilmember Jason Saccharin to kick that off.
Thank you, Chairman Brady, and hopefully everyone had a good New Year's and Christmas holiday. I appreciate you all taking the time. Just want to give you all a quick overview of the agenda item. I know Mr. Somerville was available, and Mr. Mathis were there at this meeting, but October 24th, I hosted a community meeting downtown. Several folks from the city were there, the Sheriff's Office, SCDOT, as well as Charleston Moves, Senator Kimpson and Representative Gilliard were both in attendance, and about 40 downtown residents. The purpose of that meeting was really to draw attention to some of the ongoing issues that I've been experiencing as a council member since I was elected, and hearing about, particularly on that Rutledge Ave and King Street corridor. Several intersections, but the 4 intersections that we really focused on during this meeting were Rutledge and Simmons, Rutledge and Moultrie, King and Moultrie, and King and Grove. And these are the intersections we focused on mainly because of the volume of traffic, as well as that there are 4 different schools really within a couple blocks within all 4 of those intersections. Based on those conversations at that meeting with Representative Gilliard and Senator Kimpson, it seemed that there was some political will on their part to be engaged and help advocate for some of the changes that I will outline today very briefly. Couple things before I make those recommendations and kind of gauge the standing committee's appetite on moving forward. This part of the Upper Peninsula has experienced heavy traffic volumes during the morning, late afternoon, and a lot of that is just natural traffic patterns, but some of that is the increased population that we've seen in some of our neighborhoods. And all of this really is juxtaposed on the 2018 Charleston citywide plan that City Council adopted in 2018. I just want to read you, just a quick paragraph which kicks off the plan that was adopted in 2018. In preparation for the continuous influx of people and businesses, the City of Charleston has developed an updated citywide transportation plan that provides solutions as well as a long-range vision for Charleston's transportation system aimed at improving mobility, mitigating traffic congestion, improving safety for pedestrians and vehicular traffic, and enhancement of the transportation corridors. The 3 recommendations that I will make all fit and align with the transportation plan that was adopted. And I can get into those in a second. But the requests that we want to make are bulb outs and or curb extensions at all 4 of those intersections, which should include a rectangular rapid flashing beacon. And again, the improvements that we are advocating for are consistent with the 2018 plan that was adopted. So we're not asking for anything out of the ordinary. And in fact, these are recommendations that were embedded in that plan. And the last request that we'd make, Chairman Brady, is based on the feedback from Representative Gilliard and Senator Kimpson, I'd like to ask staff to begin, kind of formal conversations with county and state colleagues, kind of to determine, where we can find some funding for this and prioritize this. Folks from South Carolina DOT were there that evening, and they did also punt a little bit and say, we got to find the money for this. But Senator Kimpson particularly was interested and said he could help, grease the wheels, so to speak, and advocate for us. But it's really incumbent upon the city staff to reach out and make those connections. So that's one of my requests is for city staff to go about the work of figuring out how to get those 4 projects funded.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember. I'll kick it over to staff since you had mentioned it, and just see if they had any preliminary thoughts about the proposals that are kind of working their way up the pipe.
Yes, Chair. After the meeting, of course, directed, I did send a letter to the DOT informing them of the request to improve the intersections that Councilmember mentioned, in which actually today I got a letter from the DOT basically indicating that, we need to request through the CTC as well as TST, submit the request for the monies for those projects. They agreed that the bulb outs, as well as the increased division triangles at the intersections would help improve. But they, again, suggested that we go through the TST and CTC request route.
Is there a deadline in terms of the next round of funding that we would need to submit by?
I believe, and I asked Michael Mathis to help me out, but the TST requests are due in February, I believe, and CTC is in June.
Okay.
And I believe we did submit for the intersection at Rutledge and Simmons under CTC last year.
You did. Thank you for that.
All right. I'll open it up for questions from the committee on Councilmember Saccharin's proposal. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Did our state reps and senator agree to give us a letter on their letterhead requesting same and all like that? It's good to have those other letters of support when we make those requests.
They didn't indicate that they would, but I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. And I'm happy to reach out unless that's something that Mr. Somerville can do. But I'm happy to reach out to Senator Kimpson and Senator Gilliard if you need me to.
Yeah, maybe offline, ask Robbie to help draft, what they need to say once we know what we're applying for and when, just so the letters match our requests. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, that would be great if you'd follow up with them on that. Thank you.
Yep. And I can speak from experience putting in the TST request for the stoplight at Sanders and Bees Ferry, which I know we'll touch on later on. But yeah, those letters of support definitely help. So thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
All right. I'm just looking across my Hollywood squares here.
Chairman.
Oh, Councilmember Saccharin.
Sorry about that. One additional item that I just wanted to put on the radar. This has been picking up some steam in the community, and there's a group that started to advocate, and they will be coming to council meetings. So I just wanted to let you all know that they will be coming, articulating these same points that I'm making. And I did ask them to give me the courtesy to present this to you all first, so you're all aware, but just wanted to give you a heads up that they will be coming to upcoming council meetings.
All right. Thank you for that. I see Councilmember Gregg's hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you, Councilmember Saccharin, you went through those intersections really quickly. Could you go over those one more time?
Sure. The one intersection is at Rutledge and Simmons.
All right.
Rutledge and Moultrie. King and Moultrie. And King and Grove.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else on Hollywood Squares from the committee wish to ask any follow-up questions? All right, I'm not seeing anything. So would we need, Robbie, would we need to take action to formally recommend this, or is this something we can handle through staff initially? And then if we need the committee to endorse a letter or something like that, we could move forward with that.
I think an endorsement letter from the TNT committee would be helpful, but we do the request in-house. But again, I think, as the mayor mentioned, a letter from the DOT and the other representatives would be helpful, as well as a letter from TNT committee. So,
Okay. Well, if we want to draft a letter, I'm happy to sign it in my capacity as chairman for the committee moving forward with it as well. But first, I'd just like to at least get a consensus that the committee does want to move forward with requesting these. Mayor Tecklenburg?
I'd be glad to make it formal and have a motion for this committee to endorse the recommended improvements for those 4 intersections.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to endorse these improvements. Is there a second? Councilmember Gregg?
So I just want to understand the process a little bit, because I mean, I understand Councilman Saccharin, this has come up, but I mean, there's some intersections in District 1 that we've been waiting for some improvements on, and I want to make sure that improvements at these 4 interchanges don't come at the expense of other things that have been in the queue and needing improvements for a really long time, and we've been sort of waiting patiently. So if maybe Mr. Somerville or Mr. Mathis, can you give us the how that's going to work?
Mayor Tecklenburg?
I think I could quickly respond that these committees are money that's funneled through the counties, through
Okay.
Charleston County. So there's no impact. We're not taking any away from a request. You have a separate CTC committee in Berkeley County that, we make requests to over there.
Okay.
Yep. Isn't that right, Robbie?
that's correct.
Yep.
Okay. We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second from anyone on the committee?
I think I'm the only one left, so I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded that we endorse the recommendations coming forward from Councilmember Saccharin. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. All right. Well, thank you, Councilmember Saccharin. Unless you have anything else, I will move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up on our illustrious agenda, we have the Sumar Street 18-wheeler overnight parking, which was requested by Councilmember Shahead, and I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, everybody. I hope all had a wonderful Christmas and New Year. Where it looks like everybody's safe and seems to be safe and sound. So at one of our December council meetings, I circulated a series of photographs of a bunch of 18-wheelers, including a photograph of a pod, a portable on-demand storage, whatever you call it, unit, parked right on Sumar Street. And I know that from time to time, we have been using Sumar Street for a variety of purposes. It's been used as a place for sandbag collection. It was used during some of the storms as a dumping point for storm debris removal. And now the fire departments use it from time to time for training grounds, and also for CARTA uses it for training places as well. And I think maybe even some movie production company was out there doing some filming at one point. We've had signs out there, and I see Lieutenant King is on this as well. And I chatted with him about this problem from time to time. There have been no trespassing signs out there. And then just recently, I noticed we put up bigger signs that says no parking, stopping, et cetera, out there. In spite of those signs, people are still parking at the Sumar Street spot. Now, over the weekend, and I checked during the holiday season, did not see any out there in the last 2 weeks or so, maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So I think those signs have maybe had an impact out there, and I'm not sure if Lieutenant King can enlighten us whether or not his officers been out there patrolling that area more rigorously. But that has seemed to have some impact on the Sumar Street site. But it goes beyond that as well. It goes beyond, Mr. Chairman, just the Sumar Street site. It also impacts areas right across the street. So like everything else, you push somebody off one island, they go hop onto another island. And while this is private property, not owned by the city and not on any particular right of way, we still have these big 18-wheelers parking on what I would call abandoned land. So right across the street from our property, the city's property on Sumar Street, was an old Captain D's and a gas station. It was a BP gas station situated over there. That has become the parking spot of choice now. So since we moved it from one spot to the other. So while we may have been successful with the new signs being posted, that we've got them off the Sumar Street site, they're now over at the lot across the street. I don't know if we've had any contact with the property owners over there to see if they've given permission to have those parked there. And then further down, Sam Rittenberg at Ashley Hall, at the entrance to Ashley Hall Manor neighborhood, at Ashley Bowling Lanes, the South Carolina Department of Transportation has used that as a staging area for some of their heavy equipment for, I'm not sure what the equipment is being used for, but it's out there. And we've complained to them about this from time to time, and they continue to allow that Department of Transportation equipment to be placed there. And then from time to time, some of these 18-wheeler rigs are there as well. Now, I know there's a different ball game when you're dealing with private property versus city-owned property, but this is a terrible eyesore. I mean, it really is, just looks like a dumping ground for West Ashley. And we've got to address it somehow. I don't know if we do it by a zoning ordinance. I'm not sure if there's something, and I see Dan is with us listening in as well. Is there something we need to do with our livability court differently? But we've got to put it into large lots turning into parking garages for 18-wheelers and heavy equipment over in West Ashley. I'm not sure what the solution is to that, if it's by zoning or by other means. I don't know. Julia's on the phone. I see Julia's on the Zoom meeting with us as well. And maybe she can help address that as to what we need to do to start the conversation on getting this rectified. We look like a dumping ground over in West Ashley. And certainly putting these things over there and right next to a neighborhood, quite frankly, is just disgusting. I mean, it really is just disgusting of how they allow that to take place. It's just sort of like, we don't care about you, and we don't care about the beauty of West Ashley or the sanctity of some of these folks who invest their money and time over in their residences. So I would just urge this committee, let's come up with some kind of solution or address to prevent this from happening. And then if we can get an ordinance on the books, either by zoning or some other means, let's make sure that we are following up and getting these big old heavy equipment off of our neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Shad. And you did mention a few staff members, so I did want to give them the chance to weigh in as well if they had any thoughts or comments based on your report. Ms. Rachel?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I've been dealing with this through the councilman for quite some time. There are agreements with that bowling alley. It is zoned general business. They're allowed to have the equipment there. They kind of keep it to the back. My guys have been dovetailing with the police department and even traffic and transportation, monitoring that whole entire area. I will defer to Lee Batchelder, but I'm not sure how much you can do at this point with the zoning and commercial activity, which allows those types of vehicles on their private property. We don't know if they're entering into some type of contractual agreement or not, but I could certainly defer to them regarding some type of ordinance other than what is on the books now.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else from staff or legal want to weigh in before I take it to the committee? right, seeing none, then it will come to the committee for discussion. Mayor Tecklenburg and then Councilmember Gregg.
So I guess I would ask the question of legal, or anyone who is knowledgeable. And I remember some years ago, a lot of discussion about tractor trailer trucks parking in neighborhoods in the city of North Charleston, not so much in the city of Charleston. So do we have some prohibitions like that in place at all for neighborhood parking of tractor trailer trucks? Anybody know?
I can chime in based on our experience. The tractor, not the trailer. The tractors are not prohibited in residential areas if they're on their private property. I can get with zoning again. I don't believe it's been explored otherwise, but we do have the complaints that are generated in residential areas with tractor trailers are the starting of the engines early in the morning from time to time. But I've spoken with Lee Batchelor on many occasions, and it is allowed per our zoning. That's something I would recommend looking into to change, in my opinion.
Right. And the Councilmember Shade, if I understand correctly, that the main complaint is we've kind of dealt with it on our own property, although it needs enforcement over time, admittedly, till, if it got to a certain point, we could put a chain up, but is tractor trailer parking that's on business commercial property, but adjacent to neighborhoods?
Yes, Mayor. So even today, as I came in from to my office, there were three rigs parked on the property right across the street from Sumar Street, which is the old Captain D's and old BP station there. Now, I haven't run down the owners of the property to see if they given permission, but it still is an eyesore for that location. Now, across the street from Sam Rittenberg is a couple of neighborhoods, including Ashley Hall Manor and Charlestown Estates. Then at the Ashley Bowling Lanes, you right on the front door to Ashley Hall Manor. So it really is just we're trying to revitalize West Ashley. This isn't revitalizing West Ashley. This is just going back and reverting to what people have complained about as West Ashley being West Trash. And people have a genuine complaint. If we're not going to step forward to rectify this, and we're letting our citizens down, quite frankly, we've got to get these things off of property that's subject to being revitalized and redeveloped. I guess maybe the first step is we reach out to the owners of the property to see if they got permission to do that. If they're allowed to do that, then we got to go back to what Dan just mentioned, which is looking at ordinances to see if they're allowed to do that and change the ordinance to disallow that type of use in the city. I'm sure there should be maybe specified locations so that these guys, and listen, I understand truck drivers, and they have a tough job. I mean, they're hauling, they have long hours, they cover long stretches of road, but that's not our problem. Our problem's not here to accommodate them using open slab property to park their rigs overnight. If we want to designate some areas for them, that's fine. Let's go ahead and work on that part of it, and maybe work out something that they chip in and help develop and pay for a place for them to park their rigs. But to do this on abandoned property, to do this next to neighborhoods, is just sending a terrible message to our residents in West Ashley that it's okay to literally dump on us again. And if we need to step up to the plate and get this rectified.
And I can chime in one more time. I'll take on the task of notifying the property owners of those vacant properties. I have not seen them where the Publix is located, but and again, I did not see them on there today. Of course, I could be earlier when I went by, but I will reach out to those vacant businesses, the old, I guess, Hessmart and the old Captain D's.
D's and
Yeah.
BP gas station.
Yeah, we can do that. That's no problem. And we'll ask if they could post signs. If they don't want the people there, they can post their own signs. But they would be required, since private property, correct me if I'm wrong, Robbie, they would be required to have their own tow company facilitate the tows on that for private property tows.
That's correct. That would be part of the non-consensual tows from commercial private property. They have to properly sign the lot that they will be towed.
And we can take that on for you, Councilman, and I'll report back to you.
But I also think we need to look at the proposed ordinances changes as well to modify the ordinances so this is not allowed regardless of the property owner gives permission or not permission.
All right. I want to go back. Councilmember Gregg has been waiting in the bullpen.
My questions were answered by Councilman Shade and Mr. Riccio.
All right. Thank you. I see Lieutenant King, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. So the new signage has helped dramatically. It's a lot more visible. But when we started this conversation, or at least I was brought into the conversation a couple months ago, I mean, we are checking on it, but again, that's pulling us away from doing other things. I really do think, and I brought this up to Parks a few months ago. I mean, putting a simple couple chains across that lot will solve the problem. I mean, I realize there's probably an aesthetically pleasing argument to be made and whatnot, but putting some signage up, having a padlock on one entrance so a car can get in, so a fire can get in, that will solve it instead of this becoming a reoccurring issue for at least the Sumar location. I mean, that's my suggestion. It keeps my people free from having to keep continuously checking on them. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Mayor Techenberg, I see your hand up.
Well, thank you. We'll go ahead and ask Jason at Parks to look at what kind of simple chain he can put across there and talk to the property owners. On the ordinance, I'm certainly willing to look at entertain any positive ordinance change. I do want to keep, I don't think this was Councilmember Shade's intent, but I do want to be mindful that obviously a Publix grocery store has deliveries from tractor trailer trucks, and we don't want to get in the way of commerce. And I remember the slogan that if you got something, it came here on a truck. So we rely on truckers to and their logistics to supply just about every need out there for our stores and businesses. So we certainly don't want to do anything that gets in the way of that. But it sounds like these are instances where these are not deliveries being made, but people who are overnight and long-term trying to park their vehicles where they ought to have some permanent commercial space to park. And anyway, good suggestions here today. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just to summarize, Mr. Riccio will look into, sorry, my dog's barking, contacting the property owner. And then we'll also look for the Parks Department to look at installing the chain. So we can at least do this somewhat proactively on this end. But I think, to your point, Councilmember Shade, if the problem continues to persist despite some of the efforts that we're going to go forward with, we can certainly look at this again.
Yeah, I would just go ahead and ask respectfully, Mr. Chairman, if we can just refer this to our legal department to look at some ordinance changes while we're waiting for this. I mean, I agree with everything that Lieutenant King has said, and I know he's tired of me bugging him about this because he's right. He's got his guys he's got to send out on very important issues over in West Ashley, and I don't want to take them away from that. And I don't want to take away from people making deliveries like at Publix, Mayor, but this is long-term overnight parking, and I think an ordinance change is warranted. If we can start that process now, and have that in our toolbox, that's going to help address some of this issue because it springs up. Once we push people off of this location, they go find another spot someplace over in West Ashley to do the same thing. And I think we've got to address this. We can't address what's in the unincorporated areas. We certainly can look at our ordinances on addressing it where we have control. And we certainly got control over on Sumar Street and Sam Rittenberg.
All right, so I would appreciate your suggestion. So I would ask the committee then if there's a consensus that legal at least look at any proposed ordinance changes that we may be able to take action on to look at this from the whole. I would say we probably need to look at it from a citywide perspective as well, instead of just certain zones in the city.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. I would open it up for Mayor Tecklenburg or Councilmember Gregg if they have any comments or suggestions towards the consensus to ask legal to do that.
I'm good.
I'm good as well.
Okay. So with that, then, if legal could begin looking into that and can report back at our next T&T meeting, it should give us enough time as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members and staff.
All right, thank you. So moving on, I'm going to ask that item 5 be deferred. I know Councilmember Seekings had wanted to be able to be here for the presentation, but is traveling today. And so if that's okay with the committee, I would just ask unanimous consent that that item be deferred until the next T&T meeting, and we can get the update on the bike share program.
Do we need a motion to defer?
We can make it official if we would like to. Is that a motion?
Move to defer item number 5 to the next T&T meeting.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of deferral, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Well, thank you for that. So I'll move it to item 6, and this will be for Councilmember Gregg's district, so that's good news. And turn it over to Mr. Tisdale.
Good afternoon. So we got a request to install one speed hump on Purcell Lane off of Daniels Island. The request came in around March of this year, and the applicant met the requirements. The ADT is 735, well over our minimum threshold, and the we got 92% buy-in from the community from the street, and they've met our, and the average speed's about 25.5, 26 miles an hour, which is above the posted speed limit. So they've met the requirement, and I'm requesting that the committee would approve T&T with the installation of the speed humps. We did get fire to agree that the location of the speed hump wouldn't be an impedance on their response time. And so we're requesting that it be allowed for us to build out a speed hump at that location.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tisdale, for that. And I will turn it over to Councilmember Gregg, since it's in his district, if he has any initial comments.
Well, first I would like to thank Mr. Tisdale for shepherding this through the process. It's been a long, difficult journey. The folks on Purcell Lane have been clamoring for this particular traffic calming device for some time now. So thank you again, Mr. Tisdale. One quick question that has come up. I think we're talking about installing one speed hump. Just for the record, could you please let me know, like, is it it's one, you're not allowed to put them any closer than 350 feet to a stop sign? Is that, because of course, we're going to build one speed hump, but they preferred that we install 2. So
Yeah, that's generally the rule of thumb, just because the effectiveness of, if you have speed humps too close to each other, it could cause a problem as far as people traversing over.
Okay.
So the rule of thumb is within that 3 to 500-foot window near intersection,
Okay.
where it's the most effective, where you get the best of both worlds.
Sure. All right. That answers my question.
All right. Mayor Tecklenburg, do you have anything?
No, I think the other reason we're so careful about placement and distance is the impact on fire trucks getting to, public safety vehicles getting to where they need to go in short order. So that's the other consideration from what I recall.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, then I will entertain a motion. Should someone like to make it to approve this traffic calming installation?
Motion to approve the installation of this traffic calming installation.
It has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is unanimous. So I will move on to the information items here at the end of the agenda with Mr. Mathis for the Sanders Road sidewalk update and the Sanders Road at Bees Ferry traffic signal update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have some good news on both of these items. The Sanders Road sidewalk, spoke with Charleston County earlier this morning, and they are working with the DOT to make some very minor tweaks to the plans where there is a raised crosswalk, but they do expect to put that out to bid in within the next 3 months. I would hope sooner, but they said 3 months just to be safe. And then it will be out to bid 30 to 45, maybe 60 days. And then hopefully construction will begin after that. So that one should be happening this year. In terms of the Sanders Road at Bees Ferry traffic signal, that one, as you've probably noticed, if you've been out that way, is up. It is not operating as of today, but they're going through their final inspections, and there's some punch list items that the contractor has to take care of. And once those items are taken care of, our hope is to get that operational within the next couple of weeks.
Great. And the question I had, because I noticed the out of service bags on it the other day, is there a state requirement that it be bagged for a certain amount of time in order to give people time to see that the signal is there before it becomes operational?
I'm going to defer to our traffic signal expert, Mr. Mitchell, on this one.
Normally, when we get ready to activate a signal, it is put in a flash condition for approximately 72 hours before it's put into normal operation. So that flash period is a time of notification that a signal is then being prepared to be activated.
Okay. The other question, because I was getting some response from my neighborhood and the Ashley Woods neighborhood as well. So the flash period will notify, obviously, that the signal is becoming operational. Will there be a sign or anything on the road that would say new signal or anything like that? Because I know when the light at Carolina Bay Drive became operational, there was the kind of yellow diamond sign that said, new traffic signal or something to that effect.
Yes, those will be installed before it's even put into flash operation. That's part of the punch list items.
Okay, great. All right. Well, that's all I had. Does anyone from the committee have any comments or questions regarding those two items that are coming to Outer West Ashley? All right. Hearing none, the last item on the agenda is a discussion for any matters that weren't covered in the agenda, which was very robust.
Mr. Chair, if I can get a second to update the committee on our parking meter RFP.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, we had the group went through and reviewed, I guess the submittals for the parking meters. We shortlisted down to 3, and the committee selected Flowbird. It's Flowbird Urban Intelligence. They're out of Delaware. They seem to be more apt into pay stations, but they do have the single space meters. We're currently in negotiations with them with our procurement department, but we hope to get that moving as soon as possible, getting pay stations in our service lots, and going with the single space meters throughout the city, and hopefully implementing pay stations throughout the city. Flowbird, they do have Passport. They're partnered with Passport that will provide the pay by cell option, as well as they have Duncan solution that will help with our enforcement aspect of the meter. So we think it was a good pick. We're hoping that procurement can get everything ironed out as soon as possible with Flowbird so we can move forward.
Well, that sounds great. And I was when I was traveling earlier in December, I was able to use Passport to pay my meter, and I just told it what meter I was at and entered it, and I guess it goes to the little iPad that the parking enforcement folks carry around. But it was a very seamless experience. So it's good to see that they have that capability as well.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other discussion, Mayor Tekelberg?
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we had significant discussion during our final budget deliberations about parking fees. And I was wanting to ask if it was the intent of the chair and this committee to bring that matter to this committee and discuss the impact of additional parking fees on our city and our citizens before recommending any increases to down the line to the budget ad hoc committee and or to city council.
Yep, I would like to see that, and we can certainly tackle that at our next T&T meeting, as I know Councilmember Seekings will also be very interested in having that discussion as well.
Right.
So if we can make sure we get that on the next agenda, that would be great.
That'd be great. All right. Thank you. Just wanted to follow up on that item since we had discussed it at some length.
Yep. No, great idea.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any other items up for discussion for the good of the order?
So could I ask Robbie to huddle up with budget and finance maybe, and y'all collaborate as to what the staff thinks any recommendations should be in addition to the things that we talked about already at council before this. When would this committee meet again?
I believe it's the first Tuesday in February. I believe that's February 7th.
Yeah. All right. Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. That works for me. Any other discussion to come before the committee? All right. If not, I will call us adjourned at 4:46. Thank you, everybody.